Hi, everyone, and welcome to Pod and Deliver, the show that covers personalities, events, and perspectives through the eyes of teachers. And today we have a very special guest, a longtime elementary ed teacher, but more than that, and very experienced. More than that, she's been a longtime friend. I was thinking about this week, and I think I've known Sonia longer than most of my friends.
Oh, wow.
Except for a couple of those cats like Praman and Frank and them. So, of course, I'm talking about Sonia Tovar. Welcome, Sonia.
Thank you. So I think it's been since 1991.
Gee, amazing. And you were sharing with us beforehand, though. Can you let our audience know how long you've been teaching and what grade you teach, just so they all know?
This is my 21st year teaching. I started in the year 2000, so it's easy to remember.
Were you 15 when you started? What's the deal?
Sonia,
it's my second career.
It's your second career. So there's a lot to cover. There's a lot of areas I thought we would cover, including online learning, when we're going to open, because there's rumors about that. I don't know if you heard about this.
Yeah.
And reading a reading strategy that you can't live without. But before we do, I thought we'd start the show with something a little bit different. I want to start with a comment you left on one of our videos.
Oh boy, here we go.
You're in trouble, Sonia.
What did I say?
That's what you get for watching
It's
our video.
public. Who cares?
So it was the video of our interview with Amy Ben. By the way, after this video, go ahead and watch that one and share, like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell, because I'll forget to say that later.
I watched it already. Because I got caught.
Thank you, Sonia, for watching it and for watching the show. Okay, you wrote, my 9th grade son thinks that online learning is the best thing that has ever happened to him.
Yeah.
Can you care to elaborate?
He loves not having to leave his room. He loves getting his work done during class, which he does. So he's done by lunch, pretty much. He might have a few things to take care of after lunch, and then video games. And it's hard for us to counter, except for like go out and get fresh air and exercise, because he's bringing home good grades. He gets all his work done. And then what else is there to do in a pandemic? He's not allowed to go anywhere. He's like, and I mean, for him, he thinks it's great. But like I said in my comment, he doesn't realize all the fun things he's missing, all the interaction and social experiences, and so sad. But he will be joining his new soccer team at the Alhambra High School campus next week. Oh, nice. So that's new. We're very happy for him.
And he's happy.
He's iffy about it. I mean, there's a lot of stress that goes into this for teenagers. They're experiencing a lot of self-doubt, self-confidence issues, because they don't have that daily interaction with their peers. They just doubt themselves, like, am I short? Am I this? Am I that? I can't play soccer anymore. It's all these things just because they're not out there doing it.
A lot of anxiety, right? A lot of anxiety.
Yes.
So you mentioned that you teach 3rd grade.
I do teach 3rd grade, but I mostly in my career taught 8th grade. I taught 8th grade for more than 8 years, I think. I've taught every grade all the way to adults, except for kinder and 4th and high school. I taught bits of classes to teachers getting their credential for LA County Office of Education while I was on maternity leave.
They're probably the worst students, correct?
Yeah, they don't listen and they don't do their work.
Right.
Well, really?
I think so. Sometimes.
Remember the interviews with Sonia. So
I'm sorry.
Maybe we can ask her some questions.
I apologize.
Sonia, yeah, it's like a staff meeting. They don't listen.
There's a lot to say about that. I mean, I don't want to start griping about. It's very well. I've noticed that the teachers have complained about when admin keeps us on Zoom. Then why are you keeping your kids on Zoom for 80 minutes straight? Am I crazy? Do I need to be counseled here?
No, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Like, teachers think they need to talk a lot.
So let's go into it then. Let's talk about the online experience, your situation, and then maybe some tips or because I can tell you're opinionated about this as I am. So talk about your experience right now working online.
So I actually have a master's degree in education technology. So online teaching was not hard for me to transition into. March 13th, 2020, my third graders had 5 Google Classrooms that they could navigate with no problem. Wow. I taught them that. I've been using that forum for years. I use a lot, whatever online resources the district gives us, which is a lot. I'm very fortunate in Alhambra School District. We have a lot of resources. So I'm very comfortable assigning work and expecting my students or training them to use online resources. The hard part was doing it when I'm not next to them because my last year's students were trained. When they went home in March, we hit the ground running. We just kept on going. But this year it took so long to get everybody to that point where we can really start moving along because I had to train them through a screen.
Right. How
Where do I click? I can't do this. A lot of sweat.
Now, how about the kids at 3rd grade? Do they need a lot of parent support, or are they just going for it, or are they trying to go for it?
So the problem I'm having is behavioral. The student accountability and motivation is lacking. They have too much freedom at that age to not listen when I'm talking, to be zoned out on a different screen. And most of my students are very fortunate because they actually have multiple screens or devices. So they could have me on Zoom. The parents think, oh, good, the teacher's gonna be on Zoom on this device, and they could be doing their work on this device. What they don't realize is they've got a game or a YouTube video on the other device or the other screen, not my content.
What do you mean they have multiple devices? The school has issued these devices?
No, the families themselves, they've got an extra iPad that they're zooming on, and then the content.
So they're Netflixing while they're listening to the 3rd grade teacher. Is that what you're saying here?
Who knows? All I know is all I see is they're mute and they're laughing, and I am not that funny. And
so I'm glad you're bringing this up. What do you do? Because I want to know. Because I have my own thing, but what do you do in those situations when they're laughing at something that you're not being funny?
I call them out. Yeah. And then I say, I can tell you're not doing what we're doing because you can't answer my question and you seem to be looking at something else. I can usually tell. Yeah. And then another thing is, like, we weren't allowed to say you have to have your video on, but it is an expectation that I have. So if you set your expectations, the students will meet it. So all of my students have their video on. And I give incentives and points and this and that for having your video on without me asking. All of that is training, and that takes weeks and weeks and weeks of training,
Oh, yeah. And do you feel like I'm just trying to think, is this a typical 3rd grade class in your district, or is this a Sonia Tovar typical thing?
I call it Tovar boot camp.
Okay, there you go. I got it.
So I'm very structured and organized, and it's not typical. And I have colleagues that don't even turn on the chat because it's a lot of moving parts. It's hard to manage everything. But I do have my chat open for host only. If there's going to be some kind of interaction, or maybe on a fun Friday, I'll open chat for everybody. But it's still nonsense going on over there, and they don't have self-control. They're little.
Turning off the chat, isn't that a mistake? Because I noticed that some students won't say anything except through chat.
Right. My thing is, I have so little interaction with them that I need every opportunity to hear from them.
Yeah.
So they've got a human hand, they've got a Zoom hand, they've got unmute, they've got chat. They're even sending me messages in the Google Classroom while we're live. So
Do you
I
think
want to check everything.
Right. How about we were just talking a little while ago regarding possibly going back into the classroom? Do you think they might have some difficulty once we get there? Because they've had Miss Tovar this way. How are they going to have Miss Tovar in person? Is that going to be awkward for them? Is that going to be awkward for you? How do you think that's going to be when you first go back?
Well, in my district, we aren't going back in any normal way this school year.
Okay.
Our distance learning before lunch will stay in place, K to 12. After lunch, however, there will be in-person learning opportunities for any family that's comfortable. And in our area, the parents are not demanding to go back. In fact, our parent survey was like more than 60% said no thank you for this year. So the rest of that percentage is going to have the opportunity to have in-person learning after lunch, after the core instruction, and then teachers can volunteer to do that. So if I did, I might not have my own students. I might have a range of 12 third through fifth graders or something like that.
What you just described is exactly what I'm doing right now. So to answer for what we're doing, what you're going to do, I am doing, and about 4 or 5 other teachers are on campus after lunch. For a couple of hours, and then on May 3rd, we're going hybrid for the parents that, like you are suggesting, for the parents that want it. May 3rd is happening. How about you?
Yeah, you know what? I've noticed I've been surveying I know there's school survey, but I've also been surveying my students, and I'm surprised. A lot of them are saying, I want to go back, but my parents don't let me. They don't want me to go back for a variety of reasons. And my school, as I already just said, about 25% of our kids are going to come back. And I'm like, whoa, really? And now I'm starting to believe it. I think that's all right.
So, I mean, maybe you kind of answered this already, but I've been really wrestling with what am I going to take back from this experience? What am I going to keep doing? But you said you were already doing it. So is anything going to change for you on how you teach class when you go fully back?
Well, it depends on the guidelines, because normally I keep my students real close on a rug. When I'm reading aloud, they're close to me. And so that might change because I might not be allowed to do that.
Yeah. I did hear something today that they might be thinking about making it 3 feet distance instead of the 6 feet distance. It's always something new, right? Every day.
The whole thing is silly because they have obviously never hung out with little kids. They don't know anything about distance.
These people know more than us. They're educated, Miss Tovar.
How are they going to keep little kids? The week before we went on a quarantine, I had students coming in with masks and they didn't keep it on. They had it hanging out of their pocket, laying around on the desk. I don't know what they're thinking kids are going to do.
You know, it's kind of been surprising, shifting gears a little bit, but with all the online, with all that's been going on, I've actually talked to several people recently who are deciding to go into teaching. And it's tricky because I've been asked, should I? And that's an interesting question all its own. But if somebody approached you and asked you, should I go into teaching? I've always wanted to. I really want to now. What would you say, and what should they do? How should they best prepare? I think part of your answer might be educational technology, because you have a master's degree in that. But so I can already read your mind. But what else would you tell them?
Well, I think it's a great profession. And like I said, it's my second career. So I majored in nutritional science and was a registered dietitian first.
Whoa.
And then after my first summer of working all summer and not getting off on my birthday, I'm kind of spoiled because my birthday's in July. I was like, forget this. And I went back for a full year at Cal State Fullerton to get my credential and then started teaching. Because I was like, first of all, you can't beat the schedule. I mean, it's the best.
Right.
And the hours, if you actually keep your hours, which is something I learned from my dad, who was a teacher, great hours, great schedule, and a good way to use your skills if you know how to teach, because you don't have to major in teaching. I think that's a waste.
Major in teaching.
I
don't think there's a major in education.
Education. Yeah.
Exactly. And so this is like what I'm teaching my own kids and my son, who's getting close to thinking about it because he thinks he wants to be a teacher. And I said, that's fine. But you have to major in a skill. You got to know how to do something.
Right.
So
That's right.
first you learn how to do something, have a skill. And then if you think you still want to do teaching after that, then you get your credential.
Good advice. Yeah, and I think that's there's a lot of people like you who are coming from other professions coming into the teaching field, and I think they're going to be able to provide skills, right? Because that's a lot of our young people are finding maybe college isn't the place for them, or maybe being a mechanic or something like that.
Yeah, I was a science major, so it was easy for me to teach 8th grade science, no problem,
Right.
And I love science. Ironically, I'm not teaching science right now because our Mandarin program is science-based. So my students get their science instruction in Mandarin, and I teach them all the other subjects.
Oh, well, you said Mandarin. I know you do some immersion. How do you say it? Dual immersion, correct?
Yes.
Have you picked up any Mandarin?
Not much.
Okay.
Can you explain, for those who don't know, what dual immersion is?
Dual immersion is when students spend part of their instructional day learning and being immersed in a new language, in a second language, I should say. Wow. It's called a target language. And so there's two models. There's a 90-10 model and there's a 50-50 model. So the 90-10 is like a graduated scale where they start off in TK or kinder, 90% in the new language and only 10% in English. And then each year after that, it goes 80-20, 70-30, and so on until 4th or 5th grade, where they eventually get to 50-50. And then 50-50 starts off from the beginning, 50-50. But the way it works when they get into the junior high and high school years is it's considered dual immersion if your program includes the language. So let's say it's Spanish, you're learning in Spanish, you have Spanish class, and one other content area in that target language. You would still be considered dual immersion in high school.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then we ship them off to China after they know the language to go get some work. Wow.
Well, my own kids at home have been in dual immersion Spanish for many years. So
Spanish, that makes sense.
That just matched with us. But they did have friends in their Spanish classes, at their school, who spoke Spanish at home and were in the Mandarin program. So some kids are going for it with their third language.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You mentioned your father, and that's exploration territory there for sure that I want to go back to. Okay, I want to bring up your dad again, but
yeah, I was going to in one of my answers that you sent me questions, and I'm prepared. I have it all typed.
I added, I actually was going to bring him up anyway, and so
I'm familiar with him too.
Just to prove it, what does that say?
It says Mr. Craig Wright.
So,
so let me just mention something most people don't think about is my mom was a teacher too.
I was about to say that your mom taught too.
Oh boy,
I knew that.
I'm gonna get in trouble. We could talk about your mom too.
My dad is a very large figure, so he kind of,
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm glad that you're very positive about teaching still, and it feels like teachers have gotten beaten up a bit lately, and so I'm like you. I'm giving advice that I would recommend it as well. Especially if you do certain things in the beginning,
right?
So talk about you're working with third graders and you're really teaching them how to read. You're really doing the most important thing of all. And so for those parents that are at home with their kids, their kids are learning how to read, and even for people like us who have students, and the type of students who have low reading skills, is there a reading strategy that you kind of can't live without that you think is the strongest approach to teaching a child?
Yeah, it's read.
You get the book open.
So students aren't given this opportunity, and I mentioned it before, it's because teachers talk a lot. We think the more we talk, the better they're going to get, but it's not true. We need to, hit them with our mini lesson of whatever reading strategy, and then they need to read. And they also need to see you reading. And, your inflection and your enthusiasm about the story, or even thinking out loud as you're reading the page. Oh, this makes me think of blah, 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 whatever, at any age, that's what they need. And so my biggest thing, and actually what I always do on the first day of school, is read aloud, read a book. It creates an environment of shared experience and opportunity for discussion. And then later on, the students start to refer to the books you read and say, oh yeah, that book had that, and whatever it was, quotation marks and onomatopoeias or whatever. In third grade, that's what it is, but in upper grades, it's more than that.
Is there like a go-to book that you go to? I mean, like every year you go, I have to read this book because this one gets them every year. I mean, is there one like that?
No, because I read a picture book every single day.
Nice.
So there's so many that I don't.
Oh, okay.
But
online?
Online,
you're doing that too?
Now that we're online, I'm only able to fit in about 3 times a week because I have such limited time with them, and
still a lot. 3 is great.
Time with them, because then they switch to their Chinese class, and I get the new group.
Oh, wow.
So.
Yeah, you had sent on some information to me regarding some Dr. Seuss books, or even some links, and oh my goodness, that was invaluable. I didn't know that there were all these picture books online. I think there's some resources that we teachers sometimes need to pick our colleagues' brains, like I did with you. And I'm just thankful for that. And Ruben and I read a book together recently. It was a Dr. Seuss book, and because he likes to read the big ones, I like to read the little. Anyways, it worked out. It works out.
I don't know. I'm missing the joke there, but
I think that the something I've noticed that has changed in teacher culture recently is sharing. When I first started teaching, teachers didn't share; they hoarded. It was like their secrets that they had, and they didn't want to share. It was very strange. But now the most amazing resources are out there for free from teachers, and they are not selling them. In the last year, that has really changed. They're not selling what they worked hard on. They're just giving it. And it's
don't you agree that from the very beginning, I've stolen, but I don't steal because I always go back to that teacher. Don't you think they'll be more generous if you acknowledge, hey, that was your idea. I stole it from you. So
exactly.
When I started teaching, what's that?
Give them the credit.
Give them the credit. Absolutely. So I'm glad that the community is opening up like that, or it has. This might be an unfair question, but those are the funnest, right? But if a kid, so I teach 9th and 10th grade, and now this year 11th grade. If a kid, sometimes I assess a kid like a reading assessment, and they'll score 4th, sometimes 3rd grade level, and it's not common that it's that low, but I'll get that sometimes. And of course, I'm aware that assessments can change day to day. Sometimes assessments are a weird thing, but they're a useful tool to get a quick idea, a quick picture of a kid. So we have to be careful about assessments. But if a kid scores at a 4th grade level as a 10th grader, which can happen, somebody from the outside can look at that and say, oh, you see, he wasn't taught. He had bad teachers. That's a mistake in my opinion, although maybe you have a different. Aren't there other variables as to why a kid is reading at that level?
There's a lot of variables, and it starts in the home. When I say that students aren't given the opportunity to read, that starts in the home. When you've got the TV on all day and all night, it's hard to read.
Yeah.
Or if you don't have someone at home telling you it's time to turn off the TV, it's reading time. Yeah. That's number one. And then, keep that in mind as a teacher. I know these students don't have a quiet home, and I really know it now because I can see and hear their home every day. And that has been such an eye-opener and so heart-wrenching in some cases.
Was that like the Tovar home though? I mean, when you were a child, there was like no TV on and dad and mom read to you. Was that pretty similar? I mean, is that what you're saying?
That was my home, the right home.
Oh, that's right. It was a Tovar. I apologize.
Yeah,
right.
That was the right home. And we're more lenient than my parents were about TV, but definitely have a lot of restrictions. And my kids do complain, why do we have to be the reading family? And this and that. And I was like, you're going to thank me later. But anyways, what I was saying was, if I have a teacher, as a teacher, keep in mind that the students don't have a home where they can read in peace or have it modeled for them, then I have to provide it. That's the only way they're going to get it.
Wow.
So I have to carve that out of every day. This is reading time. And this is not choosing a book time. That's like separate. They have to do that during their own time. You got to be ready with your stack of books, and you're not getting up. Like we build the stamina in third grade for that.
I got to ask because anybody who teaches reading, like you and I do, there's going to be days or students who say, I don't like to read. No. And say no. So how do you address that?
Well, I have never had a student tell me that because, like I said, I have my expectations and they are expected to meet it. So if this is part of the day and everybody has a book, what are you going to do? And I do have students who don't read. They sit there with their book and they don't read, and I'm constantly monitoring that. Yeah. And so, walk around and ask them, read me this page. Oh, it seems like this might be too hard for you. Or, is that interesting? Because one of the things that I really stress is don't read a boring book. That's the worst thing ever. Don't read a boring book. And so I make them go switch it. Get a good book, something you like. And I try and provide. I have thousands of books in my classroom. So
it's a subtle point. It's a subtle point, but it's important. What you just did there is you asked them a question. Is that interesting? Because the mistake would be, it's reading time. Read. So, and sometimes we do that, right? It's a mistake though. It's, is that interesting? Is that too hard for you? Asking questions to persuade them, really.
Yeah.
And to get answers. So I like it. And, okay. So let's talk about your dad, because I was thinking about this, this week as we were preparing to talk to you, is that Craig Wright had a big influence on me on reasoning and analyzing books or people and anything. And so I owe a debt in that regard. But was he influential in you becoming a teacher and any other way in that world?
Yes, my parents have influenced me the most. Both are retired teachers, and looking back as a mom and as a teacher, I can see that that's what they were. They were teachers, even though my mom didn't start until I finished high school. She went back to school. Her style was to provide organization and choice, which is something that I definitely adopted as a teacher, and I try to as a parent. But for my dad, he modeled a lot of things. Like I mentioned earlier, he always came home on time, meaning around 3:30 p.m. He never brought work home, except once in a while he would bring home the Scholastic book orders because he had to count it all. And we would be like, what'd you do? What is this, Dad? Because he never brought anything home. I got to count the book orders.
I remember those.
Another thing that influenced me was I got to see him teach a lot because he taught in a year-round school. And so when I was on summer vacation, I would pack my lunch and go with him to work. Wow. And I would sit in the back and read my book and just watch or whatever, you know. And so I saw his efficiency and how he constantly walked around and monitored the students and you know, checked for understanding. And his style is, as he does things, he tells you what he's doing. So like as soon as they would all walk out for recess, he'd say, so everybody has their paper out because I'm just going to walk around real quick and check, and I don't even have to collect it. And I know those students, I'm going to write their names down, and I know those students that didn't get it. And then, you know, and then he gets his snack, and then we walk out for recess. So it's like he was always saying out loud what he's doing. And Jake, we had a conversation recently about this. It was about like saying I love you or hugging. You know, he's like he's always like saying, I'm doing this because, and he will tell you why he's doing it.
So you would say it in class, he's justifying the teaching.
To me as his kid, his third grader, his fourth grader, who he brought to work with him.
Okay.
Yeah. And he did that as a parent, you know, he would say, I'm telling you I love you every day because my parents didn't do that for me. And, you know, it's just like the way he is a teacher.
Yeah, just his daily life. He's just a teacher. Yeah. Do you think that, I think he taught mostly middle school, correct, your dad?
5th grade, I think.
Oh, okay.
Most of his career was in 5th grade, but then he was very successful at teaching them math. And most of his students went on to pre-algebra in 6th grade. So then he's like, hey, I want to know what they're doing. So he went back to get his math certificate, and he started teaching 8th grade algebra.
I remember that. Okay.
And then his last few years of his career, he was actually at Bell Gardens High School teaching algebra and geometry to all the juniors who didn't pass.
Just to give an idea of your dad, he taught 5th grade, as you mentioned, then ended up at Bell Gardens teaching math. Mm-hmm. Very unusual for a teacher to make that kind of a jump. So I was interested when he told me and I met him because he used to teach Bible classes at the church we attended, right? We all went to church, and there's nobody who could teach like him. And what I liked about him, and this is what really changed the way I thought about things, was that he would teach parts of the Bible people like to skip and pretend weren't there. Oh, these are a little uncomfortable parts. No. Let's talk about it. And let's ask questions. And it's pretty life-changing being in one of his classes.
Yeah, I agree. He still teaches it. He still teaches online Zoom. Didn't stop.
Wow. I think it's so valuable to have both parents able to, you know, rub off on you. And now we see you as a great, 8th grade now, going back to 3rd grade. I'm sure you just count your blessings all the time, right?
Definitely. I'm very blessed.
Very cool.
So, okay, I hate to make it uncomfortable for you in the sense of, are you going to go back? Are you going to be on campus?
So this is what I wanted to mention at the beginning. Here's the problem for a lot of teachers. We're also moms. If my kids aren't all going back, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So that's the dilemma that every teacher who is also a parent is kind of in. So I'm not sure. And on top of that, I'm also teaching extra classes in the afternoons to ELs who are very high need. So I was thinking that I would teach them. So I'm not sure what is going to be asked of me or offered as an opportunity, but I'm willing. And I'm fortunate enough that my husband is working from home now for good, which is very life-changing for our family. And
Good.
so he's here and he can kind of monitor. We'll see what happens. I don't know what each of my
He knows
kids.
how to make a sandwich.
I already taught my kids to feed themselves.
I gotcha.
Dinner.
Nice.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So I have high school students who cooking. I mean, because we were forced to make dinner once a week. We all had
We were in high school. It was parent abuse.
I remember that. I learned that from you, from the Aguilars.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
My mother.
Well, it wasn't our mother; it was our dad.
Or our dad too. But remember, my mother taught us how to wash clothes like at 10 or 12.
But I mean, Dad was making us.
Yeah. We had food.
Jacob, that's not strange. My kids all do their laundry by 3rd grade.
Okay. I thought maybe it was a little child abuse, but go ahead.
No.
Okay.
Well, we asked this question to everybody, but do you have a favorite teacher or mentor who has influenced you the most? And you could pick more than one because it's become a pattern lately. People pick more than one.
Besides your parents, maybe we should say, no?
Parents come first, huh?
Well, they are my biggest influence. So, to be honest, not really.
Okay.
It's gonna have to be my dad and my mom.
That's a great answer.
That's fair.
I mean, your parents are so great.
Yeah.
Like your mom, I mean,
sweetest lady. Sorry, she's the sweetest lady.
Just
kind.
Absolutely.
Smart.
There's something about going to your house. We walk in, and just that smile, just the hospitality, the goodness from your mother, and then your dad walks in, and he questions, he'll question everything. It's awesome.
No, good combo. Good combo.
But I will say that I have been fortunate in 8th grade and now in 3rd to step into a position where there is a veteran teacher in my team. And so I've been able to learn from them and copy them, steal whatever they're doing, give them the credit and get good ideas.
It sounds like, am I correct in what I say is that you're a no-nonsense kind of teacher, and you probably hold a lot in. You want to say something to things that you see around you in terms of other teachers. Is that right? Okay. You didn't even want to answer me. That says enough.
I mean, I'm very opinionated, as you know, and I could be judgmental. I try not to go that route, but let's just say I can offer a lot of suggestions.
Yeah. No, I think I always feel like whenever I ask you something, you're going to just tell me but you're sensitive. I mean, as we've got more mature and older, we just get more sensitive. And I think you have, and I always appreciate when I ask a question, you give it to me, you give me the answer. You don't, beat around the bush. You let me know, and I appreciate that. I really do. I think people do appreciate that. They want honesty.
I'm glad, because I don't have time for nonsense.
That's all right. I hear you.
Yeah.
But yeah. I will say I am judgmental of any teacher who's dragging around one of those wagons full of papers. What is it that you really need?
They like to drive it home in their car and bring it back.
What do you mean by that? Elaborate.
I believe that, well, actually, this is something that my dad, I remember him saying. He said, teachers create their own work. Whatever work you have, you create it for yourself. And so I always think about that when I'm working on a project or a plan. It's like, okay, is this going to be more work for me, or is this beneficial for the student?
Yeah.
Very good. I mean, it's an important piece because we talk about burnout a lot among teachers, but why is this burnout happening? And I think it is a spinning of the wheels, but not getting to the core of what you're trying to do. Is the kid even demonstrating anything from this work?
A lot of busy work, yeah.
Yeah, and also I think because we're teachers, we're compassionate. We feel for our students. We want to do so much for them, but we have to learn how to let go of the things that we have no control of. You have to figure out, what is it that I can do, and just stick with that.
I think it's a good place to end, unless you have something else for Sonia.
No, I think I just want to thank you for being here with us. Hopefully we can bring you on again, and because you're a wealth of information. You have parents who've given you a lot of that information, but you've also garnished it over the years, right? And definitely thank you for coming on with us, and I hope we could have you back again. And yeah, thank you for your time, especially. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia.
It was a pleasure. I'm honored to be on Pod and Deliver.
Thank you.